Here we are with Lesson 14 entitled Federalist versus Anti-Federalists. So our teaks that we can put the events described here leading to the ratification of the Constitution in chronological order, that we can analyze why some Americans supported the new Constitution while others opposed it, that we can identify the importance of the Federalist and Anti-Federalist Papers to the U.S. system of government, and that we can analyze the arguments of Federalists such as Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, and Anti-Federalists like Patrick Henry and George Mason. So let's go on. So now that the Constitution has been approved and ratified by Congress, it goes out to the states for debate and for hopefully ratification. So the Constitution is debated at state legislatures, public forums, public town halls, and meetings. And here we see a famous painting depicting that debate. It's entitled The Constitution Debate in the Virginia General Assembly. And I'm not sure, but I do think this guy here on the right, I think that's Patrick Henry. All right. Okay, maybe it didn't exactly happen that way, but they did debate. And in doing so, they fell into two main groups. The first of these are the Federalists. And these are the people who support the Constitution because it creates a federal republic. And this means a group of states that are bound together by a strong national government. That's why our government is sometimes referred to as the federal government, because it is a collection of states brought together under one government. Then we have the Anti-Federalists. They support the idea of a loose confederation, very much like the Articles of Confederation was, because they believe that the states were better able to serve their own people than one national government, which they saw as kind of a one-size-fits-all government. Let the states take care of their individual people and their needs. So if we look at these two pictures here, imagine each one of these colored pieces of yarn is a state. So each one, while it's an individual state, are nonetheless bound tightly together by a national government. Whereas this one, if you look at this picture, this is a very loose knot, and this is more what the Anti-Federalists imagined. Again, a loose confederation where the states provided most of the most important services. So looking at the two sides, first we had the Federalists, with Fonzie, yes. They supported the Constitution, yes to the Constitution. They favored a strong national government. They believed the Articles of Confederation had shown the weakness of a government that wasn't strong enough. In doing so, in creating this government, the states needed to give up some of their powers. For example, the states had no business printing money if the national government was going to do that for everybody. They wanted a single executive with 3 equal branches, so they wanted the president's powers to equal those of the legislatures. And finally, they wanted the states to protect individual rights, which is why they didn't think that a Bill of Rights was necessary. Then we look at the Anti-Federalists, with our guy here, and they said that they did not approve of the Constitution, as it is at least. They favored a weak national government, like under the Articles. They wanted the states to keep most important powers, such as taxation. They were okay with 3 branches, but they wanted the executive branch to be weak and to be dominated under the legislative branch, under Congress's control. And they said that the Constitution needed a separate Bill of Rights. Now, in supporting the Constitution, we get the Federalist Papers. These were a series of 85 essays written by some important politicians of the time. 3 of those were Alexander Hamilton of New York, James Madison, and John Jay. Now, we've talked about James Madison before. He was the father of the Constitution, so of course he supports it. So they write these essays in which they break down the Constitution and make their arguments why they believe this Constitution is the best form of government and will protect the rights of both individuals and the states while protecting the country with a stronger national government. These essays were published in newspapers, and owners of newspapers and merchants tended to support the Federalists. So in publishing these essays, this gave the Federalist side an advantage in public opinion because they were able to get their ideas out in front of the public. However, there were a group of people who were Anti-Federalists, and some prominent writers and Anti-Federalists included George Mason of Virginia. George Mason was actually George Washington's neighbor in Virginia. Mercy Otis Warren, we discussed her before, and Patrick Henry. Remember, he's the one who said that he smelled a rat and did not want to attend the convention because he just didn't trust what was going on. The Anti-Federalists said that the Constitution must have a Bill of Rights, and they feared that this presidency, even if not intended to, would ultimately lead to a tyranny. So always that question of, will the president lose control or gain too much control, actually, and become a tyrant just like the British monarchs were. But nonetheless, the Constitution is approved within the course of a year. By June 1788, the requirement for ratification was 9 of the 13 states or 2/3 vote. So on June 1788, New Hampshire becomes the 9th state to ratify the Constitution. So this is now the official government of the United States. Let's leave 4 states to go, but 2 of those are really important, Virginia and New York. These are 2 of the largest, most populous, and wealthy states, and they're right in the middle of the country. So it's going to be pretty hard to have a successful country without Virginia and New York coming along. So, James Madison of Virginia uses his influence and promises the delegates from those states that if the Constitution is ratified, if they will come along, that he will add the Bill of Rights as a set of amendments to the Constitution. So Virginia approves it in June 1788, New York in July of 1788, the next year North Carolina in November 1789, and finally a year later, stubborn Rhode Island, that tiny little state that refused to attend the convention, they become the last state to ratify by a very narrow margin, but all 13 states have joined the United States. And sure enough, James Madison keeps his promise. He writes the Bill of Rights, which is added in 1791 as the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. So our Lesson 14 thoughts. Let's compare and contrast the arguments of Federalist and Anti-Federalist on the issues of national government, executive power, and individual rights. And while they may have lost the ratification argument, what did the Anti-Federalist accomplish? And I kind of gave that away here with question 3. George Mason is sometimes called the father of the Bill of Rights. Why do you think this is so? Well, finish your notes here, do your thoughts, and that concludes Lesson 14, and we'll see you soon.